that mad night in April where it still took about 30 seconds to work out who scored the goal in real time. None of us were really sure, but what did he say after the game? I just got my head down and kicked it as hard as I could.
Welcome to Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We're here reacting to the news that Cameron Burgess is departing. Seb Brown joining me. Seb, not a massive surprise that Burgess is departing. We speculated about this on the live show on Friday. 29-year-old, wants to be in the Australian World Cup squad, and we'll talk about the situation at Ipswich. But in terms of Cameron Burgess, you want to be playing. Perhaps the biggest surprise, the biggest conversation point at the moment, though, is maybe a surprise he's gone to Swansea. Give us your immediate reaction.
Yeah, I guess the immediate emotion is one of kind of sadness again. It's one of these double promotion heroes that's moved on. We saw a few leave last summer, didn't we? Jackson, Edmondson at the start of the season, Marcus Harness released a few weeks ago. But I think when Luongo was the first one to be announced he was moving on, we kind of thought there's a bit of a shift here, and some of the heroes that we've come to love for the last 2 years are going to start departing. And I guess the longer it went on without him signing that contract, the retained list came out. They said they were still in discussions with him. I think McKenna, towards the end of the season, hinted a few times that we were in discussions and he was a player he wanted to keep. And all those links came out with, was it Rangers, Valencia, Girona? And I guess, no surprise for me that he has departed, given that it wasn't done that quickly. But the destination is a surprise, I'll admit that, but I think it's quite clear from his Instagram kind of message that he's done what he wants to do for his career. As you just said, he needs to play football. Would he be starting that many games next season with Jacobs ahead of him? I guess we'll discuss that at some point in this quick chat. But yeah, overall sad, I think, because he was one of the mainstays of that double promotion campaign, wasn't he? With some big goals and some big moments along the way. Yeah,
we'll finish kind of substantively on Cam Burgess at Ipswich and then what it means going forward. But just to pause on Swansea, I guess if we've been doing a little bit of research ahead of recording this, and it seems like they're quite aggressively pursuing a return to the Premier League, having been a little bit middling, shall we say, in the last few seasons. We obviously had a brief encounter with them in 23-24, didn't we? And I can't even remember the home game. I remember the away game because of all the rain. 3-2 was it at home? I can't even tell me about that one. I can't even remember it. Sad,
yeah, it was. Well, we had all these games where we were 3-1 up for quite a while, and I think we let one in relatively late. I think George Hurst might have got one, or possibly two, maybe
that season to do my research.
I linked that with Plymouth and Preston. There were quite a few kind of 3-4-2s around the similar time of year, I think. But yeah, 3-2 victory at Portman Road. And of course, the one that in the pouring rain away at Swansea when Broadhead dinked the keeper.
So doubled them, didn't we? And that was kind of typical of Swansea at that point. But takeover in November, announced in April that Luka Modric is also an investor and part of the ownership group. Quite an aggressive bit of off-field recruitment too. Darren O'Day, Richard Stearman, names familiar to Town fans of a certain vintage, joining the backroom team. Finished the season with 5 wins in a row before drawing and losing the final 2. So I guess as much as we've kind of said, it's a surprise because he's been linked with other clubs in terms of fellow Championship clubs. Maybe Swansea started to be upwardly mobile again. He's been sold a project.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. They're looking to be a bit more kind of progressive, aren't they? They've had a few years when they first came down, was it under Steve Cooper? They got in the playoffs 2 years on the bounce, and then as happened with parachute payment clubs, once that money kind of dries up, you kind of find yourself having to reset a little bit, a few mid-table finishes. But it looks like they're going to go again, and I think the overriding reason why he's gone is probably the offer of that 3-year contract, isn't it? It's a bit of security for him. He's 29 years old. It gives him that security for him and his family. And yeah, he's probably been sold a bit of a project, ambitious American owners, something he'll be very used to from what he's had here for the last couple of years or so. And clearly the offer on the table was an incentive one for him. And yeah, if I guess Swansea will be in that kind of bracket of clubs. We know the levels in the Championship now. It's kind of always going to be these parachute clubs, then a gap, then kind of the ones that make key player sales or invest heavily and are smart with their player recruitment. And Swansea will be hoping to break into that kind of latter kind of group and aim to maybe sort of 5th and 6th and crash the playoffs. And yeah, he's gone there. They're going to get themselves an incredibly dependent and solid and a standout in some ways Championship defender, and we wish him all the best. And at least we'll get to say goodbye to him at Portman Road. You know, he didn't feature in the West Ham game, did he? All the plaudits were for Luongo coming on and saying goodbye, and Burgess wasn't even on the bench. So, you know, I think a few people might have read into that thinking maybe he's not going and that's why he's not been involved for his farewell. So hopefully we will get to see him at Portman Road and can give him the send-off he deserves.
Yeah, I guess that kind of explains a little bit why we're doing this recording, isn't it? Because we obviously got able to talk a lot about Luongo, as you say. You know, in terms of Cameron Burgess, the player and the leader really in our squad, it's right that we pay tribute to the guys who have contributed so much. And Cam Burgess was, you know, had a really interesting spell at Ipswich, didn't he, Seb, coming in as in 2021 and to be where he is now, one of the kind of was the key player certainly in the promotion team. Yes, we'll talk more about why less used this past season, but yeah, a real key part of that squad and a real leader.
Massively so. Is it fair to say he's probably the poster child for Kieran McKenna's coaching ability? I don't think it's disrespectful to say when we brought him in was it August 2021? It would have been, wasn't it, part of the Demolition Man summer? He was signed as I thought we were signing a head it, kick it centre-back from Accrington who'd be playing on the left of a back three, and his job would simply to be to kind of partner Wolfenden or somebody else and do the physical stuff that you have to do to get out of League One. I remember not being overly convinced the first few times I saw him. I'm sure we sat here on the podcast and discussed that if you spin him on the halfway line, he's in trouble. And yeah, the development in his game is absolutely incredible to move on like he has and become so crucial to us. And I think we forget, don't we, that first 6 months under McKenna, when he takes over in the December to the end of the season, it was pretty much Wolfenden and Edmondson. They were the preferred first couple of centre backs, and I do remember McKenna in a pre-match or post-match press conference said that, you know, Cam Burgess is contributing really well in these tactical meetings, and it showed he had an excellent understanding of the game. And you've mentioned that leadership kind of quality. I guess that would shine through in that kind of environment as well. And then he kind of got his place. Forest Green away, was it? Edmondson didn't feature the second game of the season. Burgess came in and didn't really look back apart from a horror injury, and became so dependable, so steady. That relationship with Leif Davis, you know, the quick ball down the line. Yeah, we saw a couple down to George Hurst where he just bypassed Leif Davis as well, didn't we? George Hurst sprinting on that left-hand channel. There was always the big switch on out to the right wing with Wes Burns or whoever was playing in that right wing role. And yeah, he just took his game to the next level. His heading ability was phenomenal. You know, there were games last season, in the promotion season, when every time a ball went in the box, it was like his head was a magnet and he would clear his lines. Incredibly vocal, and yeah, a real miss.
And as you mentioned, someone who, you know, fans love, a player who puts their body in the line. That collision, shall we call it, with Harvey Saunders of Bristol Rovers in September. 30 screws needed in the surgery to sort that out. Played in a face mask as well. I know that kind of sums the guy up, doesn't it?
Very much so. I remember, I think did he put a picture on Twitter or Instagram or something of the X-ray, and it looked a horrific injury. And yeah, Burgess, being Burgess, got himself back playing. Such a brave play. You know, you go through that kind of surgery and it must be in the back of your mind the first time you go in for a header or put your head down to clear the ball. But him being the kind of character that he is, that brave, solid centre-half, got straight back to it, and it didn't affect him in the slightest, did it?
And some key goals. You briefly mentioned that. I mean, I'm wearing the orange shirt in homage to the most recent example of a key goal for our season, but you were at a few away days where Burgess rocked up and got an important goal, weren't you?
Yeah, Bolton away, right in front of the Town fans. It was coming off the back of that spell where we'd drawn with Plymouth, drawn with Sheffield Wednesday. We were 8-9 points behind them at one point, and we kind of were starting to swat teams aside. I remember a few nils against the likes of Forest Green and Morecambe sides we should be winning, but going away to the Reebok was kind of the first time we really turned up, and you know, a top quality side of that level didn't lay a glove on us, and he was a big part of that header from the corner, Leif Davis corner. Burgess gets on the end of it, celebrates with his arms up in front of the away end, a great moment. And of course, in homage to the shirt that you're wearing, that mad night in April where it still took about 30 seconds to work out who'd scored the goal in real time. None of us were really sure, but what did he say after the game? I just got my head down and kicked it as hard as I could. And yeah, incredible memories that will live with us long forever, because the kind of player he was, he would turn up on the big occasions when we needed someone to kind of, you know, either marshal that defence, ensure that any balls into the box were cleared, or pop up with the occasional big goal. He was the man for the occasion.
Yeah, it was Johnny on the spot for Portsmouth away. Do you remember that game? Was it
Yeah,
over New Year's, wasn't it?
important point, wasn't it? 2-2. I think, did he get the first equaliser? Did he get the second equaliser? Yeah. So, yeah, another example. I remember scoring against Sheffield Wednesday in that 6-0 win, kind of put a header against the bar, I think he did, and then tapped it home on his left foot. So, yeah, some great moments, and those two big ones. Bolton away in the start of that run in the League One promotion campaign, and the obviously Coventry away in April 2024.
In terms of what it means going forward for Ipswich Town, we know about Jacob Greaves, a big price tag, 24 years old, so a large proportion of the kind of driving force behind Burgess's move is likely that, as it has been this past season, probably even more so next season, his first team opportunities were going to be limited, and he'll want to play in the World Cup winning for Australia. Are you satisfied with the defensive situation there? Alcon Baggett obviously had a contract extension triggered. Would you be looking to do some shopping in that part of the field to back up Greaves, Seb?
I think we might do something. Yeah, it's probably a big ask, isn't it? I mean, we know McKenna likes to have two for every position, and he will rotate at times depending on the strength of the opposition. We saw George Emerson come in for Burgess on a few occasions last year, didn't we? So he likes to have that strength in depth. I guess with O'Shea, Wolfenden and Greaves, you've got three there. O'Shea and Wolfenden will fight out for that right-sided role, but we do look a little bit kind of scarce in the left-sided one. Now, Baggett is a great prospect, but I think it would be a risk if the window was closed and Jacob Greaves got a bad injury like he did this year. It's a big risk to either amend the way you play with two right-footed players in the back two, or to give that kind of responsibility to a youngster. One thought I had, we were linked with Johnny Evans, weren't we, as a replacement for Lee Grant. I think he's retired from Man United. Is there a chance we register him as a player if he were to come in on the coaching staff, because he is left-footed and could provide that cover in an emergency situation? But it's going to be a tough sell to get somebody in, because obviously you've got Jacob Greaves, who was in the Championship Team of the Year, wasn't he? The season we signed him, our promotion campaign, so he is excellent at that level. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult sell potentially to get somebody in who knows they're probably only going to play a handful of cup games and maybe 5 or 6 league games. Maybe we looked at what we did with Richard Keogh. We discussed Luongo moving on, Richard Burgess, Cameron Burgess moving on. Do we go and get an older, more experienced player in that position who adds that little bit of nous and leadership? Perhaps that's an option we could do as well. But I'd be surprised if on September the 1st, whenever the transfer window slams shut, if our backup choice is Alcon Baggett. I would be surprised at that.
Connor Townsend slot inside maybe, or is he not physical enough for you?
Potentially he could do, but it's a very different player to Burgess and Greaves, isn't it? He's nowhere near the height, nowhere near the strength, the stature. And yeah, I think we'd need a specialist in that position, given how crucial it is, that relationship with Leif Davis. You know, obviously Jacob Greaves can work on that over the summer, but if something were to happen to him, it's a big risk. We know how far forward Davis pushes. You need somebody experienced in that left-sided role to kind of help with that left midfield role and cover the huge space in behind Davis.
Fair enough. And in terms of, we had this debate in Telegram yesterday, and I think it's continued this morning, about leaders. We've obviously seen Luongo depart, now Burgess. You know, Edmondson and Harness admittedly weren't, out and out first teamers, first name on the team sheet, but nevertheless bought into the ethos, the running towards adversity kind of mantra. Are you a little bit wary that we lack leadership in the current squad, Seb, especially if the rumours about Sam Morsey potentially going as well? We could be really lacking in that department, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, if Morsey were to move on, then we've got a critical gap there that will need to be filled quite quickly. Burgess, I think, was a leader. He was vocal at the back, wasn't he? He was always marshalling people and kind of screaming at people to be in the right positions, and Luongo kind of not as vocal, but you know, the off-field stuff these guys would have done is always incredibly underrated. You hear the term, great dressing room people, and even though the likes of Luongo and Burgess wouldn't have started every game last season, you get the impression on the training pitch they're driving the standards. In the dressing room, they're kind of leading from the front and not letting heads drop too much, given the poor results and stuff. So it's an area we will have to look at. We know they look at characters when they sign people. The amount of checks they do. We've seen that from the players they've brought in over the last few years. And also, it's worth noting, you've already got Morsey in the team. Connor Chaplin, I think, is a real kind of leader in driving the standards further up the pitch. So it's a crucial thing that we still retain. But if we were to lose Morsey, then yeah, we will definitely need to go out and recruit some big personalities who can kind of lead from the front. But some of the signings last year as well, although they haven't shown perhaps that leadership given the kind of season we had in the Premier League, don't be surprised if the like of Jacob Greaves, who was in the side of the year in the Championship, campaign. Sami Šmodić, that kind of player could, step up and show a different kind of side to their characteristics that we didn't necessarily see last season because of the way the campaign played out.
Yeah, and O'Shea as well at the moment.
Yes, so, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so, and obviously we're not wishing anyone to part, certainly our skipper. So, yeah, interesting one. So the summings up for you then, a little bit of recruitment needed in the covering department, maybe a little bit of leadership in that back line too to support it. Ideally the same person. But I think probably the headline, Seb, as much as he wasn't able to contribute a great deal last season in the Premier League, goes with our best wishes, and as you say, now kind of immortalised in club history with this double promotion. So overwhelming emotion is gratitude, isn't it, for Cam Burgess?
Very much so, yes. Thank you for your service. Remarkable improvement in your game. You gave us some great memories. So thank you very much for that. Wish you all the best at Swansea, apart from obviously the 2 times that we're going to be ending up facing you next season. Hopefully you can have a good campaign. Swansea can gate crash the playoffs, and we're automatically said won't affect us, and he can go to the World Cup with Australia. So thank you, Big Cam, from all the Ipswich Town fan base for what you did for the last 3 years.
Yeah, here. Thanks, Seb. If you want to find out more about what's going around the patch in terms of news, you can find our live reaction from Friday night with Dave and Joe talking more detail. There was a brief bit of Cam Burgess chat. We, as I said at the start, anticipated a departure was probable given the lack of news about a deal, and so it's panned out to be. If you've got any thoughts, if we're going to pay tribute to Cam Burgess, please do so in the chat, or come and join us in Telegram and let us know what you think there. And no doubt, as and when more bits and pieces get announced, hopefully some positivity. So we talked on Friday, the lack of news about incomings and that kind of stuff. It'd be good to have some positive stuff to talk about in the next week or so. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll try and let you know and get a good time when we're going live and all that kind of stuff. But for now, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be back soon.